What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast, post-game edition. After the Raiders lost a preseason game down there in L.A., their return to L.A., 19-15 to the Rams. We've got Vic Tafur still down there in L.A. after just a glorious, glorious game, Vic. Are your eyes bleeding yet? Have they stopped bleeding?
Yeah, what a return it was to L.A. It was glorious. Just probably the worst half of football I've ever watched in my life, the first half. I'm trying to think of other examples. But it was just a bizarre game because obviously no starters, so no team was playing their best players. No game plan. Neither team wanted to show their team any of their plays or audible signals or anything. So you had no starters and no plays. It's kind of a bunch of no names, drawing things in the dirt. So that's how it looked. Definitely was not pretty.
I know when we talked, the other day as camp broke up on Thursday, I was asking you if you thought any stars would play. I kind of had a hunch that this is how they would do it, just because with the whole idea of them playing 3 weeks later. I mean, to throw Derek Carr out there for a series at all makes no sense. I mean, there were, I guess, a couple defensive starters that did get to see action, and we got to see Garyon Conley play a little bit, and that was good. And really, that starting secondary got to go out there and play, but beyond that, not much. And it started off so badly. I mean, for the first snap of the game to have John Feliciano botch that shotgun snap to Connor Cook, falling it for a 10-yard loss. I mean, I don't like to overreact in preseason games, but right there you kind of just figured, man, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, it definitely was a bad omen. And then for Feliciano, there's a couple of bad snaps so far this preseason, but there's no one really behind him. There's no one else at backup center, so I think he's good. And that was the first play was terrible, and from there it didn't get better. I mean, they didn't have a first down for a long time. Cook was very ineffective. I thought no signs of the guy I saw last week. That guy was apparently a mirage, or just maybe if you practice against a team twice in a week and you play him a couple days later, maybe that's what it takes. But he was pretty bad today, I thought.
Yeah, and E.J. Manuel wasn't any better behind him. I mean, he was awful too. I mean, he had a really bad fumble. Ball security has been a problem for him in training camp. Was a problem for him in the first preseason game, and a problem for him again.
It's weird because it wasn't really a problem before. I can't recall last year before that being a problem for him. So just kind of a new thing that's kind of bugging him. But Gruden afterwards said that he was embarrassed by both quarterbacks putting the ball on the floor, and definitely they were careless. And you kind of wonder if he really wants to go to battle with these two guys, the backup quarterback, or they're going to try to find someone maybe on the market.
Yeah, I mean, Gruden has a lot of connections to quarterbacks. He's very familiar with a lot of guys out there in this league. So, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, these guys are going to play a lot over these next two games. I mean, we'll see Carr, I'm sure, play some in the in next Friday's game against Green Bay, but not going to play at all, obviously, in the final preseason game. So we'll see what Gruden does. I mean, but you look last week and you said, okay, I might be willing to go back to battle with Connor Cook. And then he didn't have a great week of practice, right? And then he has this kind of a game. So
this was the kind of Cook that I remember. This is the guy I've seen the last couple of years. So I hate to be harsh, but I just thought I was shocked last week, and I was really curious if he could kind of build off that, and he wasn't able to. So it's kind of bad for him because EJ, I think, is, I don't know if you say more solid, but maybe maybe less potentials for bad plays. I mean, both guys look bad, so it's hard to say. But I guess EJ has a little more experience, which probably is in his favor, but. Yeah, I think it's wide open. So I think that wasn't the plan. I think they wanted to have someone kind of take the upper hand by now, but I think it's wide open.
Quick impressions of Garyon Conley, getting him out there. I know there was a play on the first drive where man coverage was right with the guy, sticky coverage. I think that might have been the only time he was tested. But I guess the best thing is he got out there, right? Yeah,
he looked okay. I mean, I think he looked like he belonged and didn't get hurt again. I remember thinking when that happened that I think his biggest highlight was last night. He retweeted an old thing of him at Ohio State where he caught a ball and did a backflip. Pretty impressive. So that's the highlight for Garyon Conley this weekend, the backflip that he retweeted last night.
Well, let's see if he can still do that.
Yeah.
I mean, some other impressions of the game. We were impressed last week with Shalik Calhoun, and then he flashed again. A real nice game, and we know he's not playing against starters there, but this is the guy that has never really looked good in an NFL game, and here he was again. Looked pretty good. I mean, I kind of even liked the the roughing the passer penalty he got, just because we haven't seen this guy kind of show that, like, kind of meanness, that toughness to be a guy that's going to go in and lay down hits. And here he was. Okay, that one was late, but I kind of liked the aggressiveness we were seeing out of him. He was getting some free lanes to the quarterback. He made a stop in the run game. He looked pretty good out there.
I agree. I mean, he's showing more power this year. Definitely didn't show that in the past. He's around the ball. I mean, on plays the quarterback gets the ball off, Shalik's kind of in the area. So he's around. I mean, you mentioned he's going against non-starters. I'm sure that's something the coaches have taken into consideration, but he's making plays. He's around the ball, so I think he's probably I don't know if he's back in the bubble. I thought he had no chance to make it when camp opened, but I think he's played so well that maybe he does have a chance. But it's so hard to really know what these snaps mean in these games, especially second half snaps. Like, I mean, Denver Kirkland played almost the entire game. I mean, that's probably not a good sign for him.
Yeah.
I just think it's hard to figure out what Griff Whalen, another guy, probably one of the starters of the game, great touchdown catch today, but how's he making this roster? I just can't. He's been great. I mean, every day in camp and in practice and games, Gruden talks him up, but I just can't figure out the roster, how he makes it. I don't know who's he going to beat out. So I think for guys like that, maybe it's just a case of getting good tape out there for the rest of the league to see.
Another guy on that defensive line, Mo Hurst, he got it. Last week we saw P.J. Hall get his first sack, and here Mo Hurst did. And this was a play that kind of gets you excited to see, really how everybody comes together on it. P.J. Hall, we're seeing him just really show that great burst off the line. Really been impressed with him. He didn't have the big highlight plays this game, but makes an impact on certain plays like that where he bursted in there. And then Shalik Calhoun kind of had the pressure off the edge, and then Mo Hurst slips in there and gets the sack. So nice to see 2 games in, both rookie defensive tackles have gotten their first sack.
Yeah, they look good. And Arden Key got his feet wet a little bit, didn't do much, but at least got in there and got some experience under his belt. So he's a guy they're both also looking for big things for. So I thought those 3 guys up front on defense, the rookies, are all going to be big contributors this year.
And then Chris Warren. Really. Kind of the story of the game again. Goes over 100 yards. Again, we know he's not playing against. He's not playing against starters, but he's also not playing behind a starting offensive line. But 18 carries, 110 yards was the only running back that got a carry. I mean, the only other 2 guys that had rushing attempts were E.J. Manuel and Connor Cook. So really the only running back they used, and that might be the case for a lot of the rest of this preseason here. That he's the guy that they're gonna just kind of go out there and let get exposed, and he looked good, running the ball strong, and got a touchdown.
I kept waiting for him. He looked good, and he was out there for a while. I kept thinking they'd take him out and give him a rest. I think he's made the team, so I don't know why run the guy down. But he mentioned afterwards he got a good lather up. He definitely felt like getting a rhythm, which he hadn't done in college a lot. So I think it was good for him that way. You get the experience of just kind of getting carry after carry and getting more comfortable and kind of, asserting yourself and giving out some damage. I heard DeAndre Washington, I think, maybe a little nicked up. I think he has a knee thing. I'm not positive with the knee, but I heard that's why he didn't play. It was an injury-related absence today, so I think he was supposed to play. Same with Seth Robertson. We talked about him last week. He has a concussion. He practiced the other day, but I guess it wasn't full. He didn't have that last level of clearance, so he stayed home. He's not here. So that's another guy I thought they would showcase a lot, trying to get him on tape, maybe get some teams calling for him, but he was not here, so he did not play either.
Yeah, I mean, those are guys. I mean, you look at them. How did they make this roster? I mean, we talked about Griff Whalen. We'll talk a little bit more about that touchdown catch. EJ Manuel does throw a touchdown, but not a good throw at all. But for Griff to be able to kind of get his hand back there, a one-handed grab. I don't know that he's really ever going to be. I don't think that he's a guy that they can consider trade bait. But nice to see him make some plays. It's going to be tough with this receiver core.
Yeah, he's really showed well for himself. He's a guy who came in that way. Many people know who he was, but he's making plays. That's all you got to do, and hopefully give yourself a chance to, if not make this team, make another team.
Another guy that I thought played well on defense for the second straight week, Markel Lee. He's looking like he could be a solid linebacker for them out there.
Yeah, he said he really has enjoyed picking up Gunther's defense, and Gunther gave him a lot of praise. And he looks comfortable. I mean, that's the thing about him. I think of those young guys. Once you get comfortable in defense, you kind of know where you're supposed to be and anticipate things. It helps a lot. He's definitely a big guy. He's kind of a downfield thumper, but now he's kind of play better in space, and he's done that so far. So I think he's reacting better, and he's in the right place a lot more often than he used to be.
Shalik Calhoun played well after winning our Spirit Award of training camp. The co-winner of that Spirit Award, James Cowser, with the interception. Sunshine with the interception.
afterwards he gave credit to Derek Carr for an interception. Apparently he said in practice that same kind of play, he'd been back there, and Carr had fired the ball over his head for a completion, so he wasn't far back enough. So he was back there, and he thought he was telling himself, hey, Derek got you twice. Go back a little further. So he backed up 2 or 3 more steps than he normally would have, so he was in the right place. So Derek Carr gets the assist for the INT.
All right, we'll wrap this up here in a minute, but we do have to talk punters briefly. Johnny Townsend.
We do?
We do. Johnny Townsend, not a great. He ended up being a little more solid on the day. Got a lot of work, of course, with the way the offense was going, but a couple of not great punts to start the game. I guess that's Raider fans are going to have to get used to this, that they don't quite have the same leg that they've had when you go back to the Marquette King and Shane Leckler years. He's just not that same big, huge leg.
Yeah, and he's a rookie going through it for the first time. It's a learning curve, and Raider fans are going to miss Marquette, and so will Jon Gruden at some point. I know Gruden didn't want him here because of the personality issues and the money, but guy was a baller. I mean, Marquette definitely was a guy who got better every year, and you mentioned the big foot, and at some point this year they may lose a game and say, you know what, if we have Marquette King here, we might win that game. So I think at some point it might rear its head, and we'll talk about that at longer length. All
right. Well, we're going to let Vic get back to writing, and then I hear you got about a 35-minute walk back to your car at some point tonight.
No, I'm hitchhiking, man. I'm not. The press parking lot is on the other side of the USC campus. And I guess in the small print in the back of the press pass it says there's a shuttle. I don't read small print in the back of press passes. So I walked, and it was good. I lose some weight, so it was good. I lost probably about 10 pounds on my half-hour walk. So, yeah, no, I'm not walking back. I'm going to hitchhike back.
All right, well, first off, before we let you go, what was the atmosphere like? A preseason game, but to be back in LA was with the crowd fired up. How was that like? Just kind of seeing Raider fans be fired up to have their team back playing in the Coliseum.
It was cool. I mean, it's a preseason game. It's a 1:00 game. It's not really the same energy like the game last year when they played the Chargers down here. That game was packed with Raider fans. It was just very loud. Here, this place sits like 90,000 people, so It's probably. I want to say half. It's probably half full, and most of them are Raider fans. But the Rams fans that were here were also very loud. Like last year at the Chargers game, you could actually hear the Chargers being booed by Raider fans. Uh-huh. Here you couldn't hear that. Here the cheers were enough to balance out the boos. So that was good for the Rams. I just think Derek Johnson said afterwards that he was shocked. This is his first time being a part of this, and he couldn't believe how many Raider fans were here for this. And Kowser said, dude, like this every game, man. This is it. This is how it's supposed to be. So there you go.
Yeah, it would be fun. I mean, it's not going to work out, but it would have been fun if there had been a regular season game between these guys at the Coliseum. I mean, obviously, eventually there will be a game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the L.A. Rams at the new stadium, but it would have been fun at some point to have a Raiders-Rams regular season game at the Coliseum.
90,000, that would have been ridiculous. But this was nice for what it was, a little afternoon scrimmage between a bunch of no-name players.
All right, well, with that, we will wrap up our post-game edition of State of the Nation. As always, all of our work is on theathletic.com. You can always go to Apple Podcasts and get the show, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, everywhere. And we'll have another show for you guys midweek, and then we'll have our post-game show next Friday after the Raiders take on the Green Bay Packers.
All right, adios.